Hey everybody, Tekken101 here to review Bleach chapter number 519 entitled Hot Heat. So chapter starts off where we left off last chapter with Ichigo arriving at the Soul Palace along with the Zero Squad members. Bonds begins to do some exposition about how such a big deal it is that Ichigo's there, since normal Shinigami aren't even allowed to come close to the thing, although calling Ichigo normal would be kind of oversimplifying it, considering that he has anywhere from 4 to 5 powers. Some people actually have been considering Ichigo's Quincy's abilities as like an extension of his Fullbring abilities, so some people just say he's a Fullbringer, human, Shinigami, hollow. They don't really rope Quincy's into the same thing, but so he has anywhere from 4 to 5 powers. If nothing else, he is definitely not generic. So Ichigo looks around and takes it all in, and he's kind of thinking like, oh wow, this was the place. This was the place that Aizen was trying to break into and basically end the world. And then he was really excited that he even thought of this, because, you know, I give Ichigo some credit. I mean, he's an awesome, badass superhero, essentially, but when it comes to some cognitive issues, you know, he's a couple of curly short of a Three Stooges. Anyway, the thing that I was surprised by was he mentioned the fact that, wait a second, didn't Aizen want to get here using some kind of Oken thing? And he had, like, that was the whole point. He wanted to destroy Karakura Town to get the Oken. And the way we got here was riding in a cramped pillar with no seatbelts with 3 other guys and a hot chick and a fat girl. Where did the key fit into this whole situation? So Bonds explains to Ichigo that the Oken, the King's Key, is not actually a key. See, what happens is, from each of the, you know, elite members of the Zero Squad, they are kind of bestowed of this power from the King himself, the power that basically makes themselves the Oken. That he specifically says that their bones are the King's Key, but it's basically their whole bodies as a whole. And the whole point of Aizen, what he was trying to do, was he was trying to recreate one of the members of the Zero Squad. Essentially, he was trying to create a human life, not a human life, but he was attempting to create life, and that was why he was, you know, trying to view it as becoming a god. Okay, so after that explanation, I have one thing to say, and I'm pretty sure you guys can say it all with me now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, retcon! Whoa! Yeah, Kubo! Some people might not be saying that. Some people might be going off and say, you know, that's not a retcon, you know, because Kubo never expressly stated what the Oken was. He never, you know, had a definition of, you know, how it works or if it's actually a key. But what the hell do you call this thing then? What did this, what's the point of even drawing a key if the Oken was not actually a key? Now, could the Oken exist in this form? I'm sure it probably could, but it doesn't. The fact is, you know, like, I'm assuming that, you know, if the Soul King really wanted to, he could make the Oken in that shape and form, but he just didn't. So, you know, I mean, I'm not blaming Kubo. I want that to be very expressly stated here. I'm not blaming Kubo. Kubo came up with the idea for the Soul King. You know, he even, like, I don't know if he came up with the idea, but he mentioned it way back in the Arrancar arc. That was easily over 5 years ago. You know, he probably wasn't seeing this far ahead. He probably wasn't seeing, you know, up to this point, and he did this retcon. I guess he was assuming people just wouldn't connect the dots or whatever, but I'm not blaming Kubo for it. I'm just saying, you know, ideas involve in things. What I would have done is I wouldn't have shown the Oken at all. I would have just, you know, said, oh, you know, he needs to create this thing called the Oken to get into the Soul Palace. Yeah. You know, and you know, I'll give him some credit. He didn't expressly say, you know, he didn't make Yamamoto or somebody expressly say that the Oken was a physical object like a key. Then again, they didn't mention anything about him wanting to create a member of the Zero Squad, and that's something else that I'm more confused with, is how they said that, how they said their bones are the key themselves. Okay, so does that mean, like, with Kiryu Hikifune, for example, does that mean that back when she was a member of Squad 12, she was just a normal Shinigami, and then when she became the Squad Zero captain, or one of the Squad Zero captains, the Soul King just, like, oh, your bones are now the King's Key? Did he, like, magically just transform them that way? Or, I mean, I'm assuming the Soul King is, it's essentially an almighty god. I mean, that's the way we're, you know, thought of him up to this point. Maybe we won't see something else later on when he's more expressly fleshed out, but right now, he's basically a godlike figure, so him being able to do that would not surprise me in the slightest. The hot chick explains, I think her name's, wait, Shutara? Yeah, I'm gonna go with Shutara. Explains that Aizen Sosuke was without a doubt the personification of evil. I'm going to disagree on that a little bit. I mean, Aizen was pretty, you know, he was pretty evil to begin with. I mean, he wanted basically to become God and take over the world. But what I always described Aizen's character as, when I really thought down of it, I didn't think of him as evil. I thought him as incredibly intelligent, incredibly self-entitled. You know, he thinks, like, because of his massive intellect and because of such a genius he is, he was completely self-absorbed and he believed himself to be the center of the universe. He believed, like, you know, I'm better than everybody else, so why shouldn't I be God? You know, that's just logical. If I'm better than all you guys, I deserve to be God. That was basically Aizen's, you know, self-entitled mindset. I wouldn't have actually called him evil, though. But in this case, Shutara explains that if Aizen was in fact evil, the Quincy's are even more malevolent and depraved than he ever was. If you want a better explanation of it, think of Aizen as the devil and Juha as the super devil. You know what? Now that I actually said it out loud, that makes an incredible crapload of sense. Rock on, Juha! Okay, so next page, Ichigo is standing on a little bit of a, I guess a platform or something. I don't know if it's the same platform when they arrived on, but all the Zero Squad members are kind of standing back, and they say that Ichigo, do not move a single centimeter, do not move, do not breathe, do not fart, or you are going to die in the next couple of seconds. In the next panel, it's a little bit, you know, just because like the bubbles actually cover up a lot of it. But what I can gather from it is that the Pipe Zero Squad member is about to hit, you know, a button with a giant hammer, kind of like a whack-a-mole game or like test your strength game, and he's going to whack the hammer and send Ichigo flying into the sky. Before he can do that, though, Ichigo stops. I'm like, okay, what the hell are you going to do to me? Ichigo asks if this is how they go meet the Spirit King, to which he basically laughs in his face. I'm like, are you retarded, bro? I have to stop and think that these translations are actually accurate, but I don't care. They're freaking funny. He says that it's basically impossible for somebody as small as Ichigo to meet the Spirit King to begin with. Kiryu slaps him around a little bit and asks him to explain in more detail. Okay, if Smart Teching was still alive, I would give this job to him, but I believe he's out in the woods somewhere doing something with his new best friend, so I will take over in his place. Okay. The entirety of the entire dimension is essentially the Soul Palace. You can call it that. However, the part where the king actually resides and the part that he stays in and sleeps and everything, that is the large cocoon structure. That's that part, like I mentioned last chapter, like the floating thing in the center. That was where the king's quarters actually are. And the place they're at right now, where they landed, is essentially like the pathway toward the main palace. So it's basically like an outer palace and an inner palace, if you want to think of it that way. They also point out that the 5 floating platforms that we saw last chapter were actually 5 of the different kingdoms or castles that each member of the Squad Zero lives and resides and reigns over. I'm a little bit confused to exactly why. I mean, they said, you know, these are like their kingdoms that we reside in and we govern, and we even see little houses later on, and I'm like, are other people living in the Soul Palace? I mean, I'm sure they would. I mean, there would be people too. I mean, it's a king. I mean, kings need looked after. Kings have a lot of subordinates, a lot of servants. You know, there has to be a jester in there somewhere. By the way, I'm waiting for that. Yeah, there has to be other people, individuals living in the Soul Palace aside from just, you know, the 5 Zero Squad members and the king, because that would be just kind of boring after a while, living in eternity with just 5 guys. No, 3 guys and 2 girls, but yeah, so there's other people there, and I'm guessing they just govern these separate little areas. They look small from a distance, like just looking at them in perspective, but I'm assuming like once you get into the actual area, like it's a giant kingdom essentially. The Pipe Zero Squad member states that they're actually going to all go to his kingdom first, which is called Kirin. From what I understand from the translation notes, Kirin can either mean a Japanese mythological creature, which actually looks pretty badass, or it could also mean giraffe in modern day terms. Yay, giraffes! In all seriousnness, though, I didn't actually have to read that far into the translation notes to find out what a Kirin was, because if you're ever a nerd that played Yu-Gi-Oh!, like I was/still am, you actually knew what a Kirin was from the card Cyber Keyring, which a little bit of a metal version of that, but it still looks kind of somewhat similar to the actual interpretation, so that's pretty sweet. Okay, so the plan is set. They're all going to go to Kirin's palace first. I don't know if they're going to do like you know, like video game level things where they have to go to each, you know, individual Zero Squad's palace, but they're on their way. So next page we get the title page, and oh wow, okay, that Gundam came out of nowhere. You know, I don't know. I mean, I was reading this morning in kind of like my half-lucid state. I was actually reading it on my droid. I woke up and I'm just like, okay. I'm like, oh wow, why? I was more confused than anything else. I think what Kubo is just realizing is just Kubo's like, you know what? haven't seen Orihime on a cover page in a while, and kind of like a provocative, because if you actually look into it, there's actually a couple cover pages including Rukia and Orihime in kind of a provocative manner. If you want an example, here you go. But yeah, that's I think they just wanted to throw that in there just because there's the motive of this chapter is like kind of hot springs. We'll get to that, and they just wanted to throw Orihime and Rukia in just for the hell of it, I guess. Draw in the male reader. Okay, so after that we cut over to the Kirin Palace, and we have Ichigo and the Pipe Zero Squad member sitting in a massive hot spring with I don't know what they're called. I think they're called like bamboo water spouts or something. The kind of thing that like it tilts back, sucks up the water, tilts back, water goes into the hot spring. Except this one is just freaking gigantic, and every time it hits the ground, Ichigo is incredibly annoyed by it until he just kind of snaps. Also, while he says that, he says keep an eye on his head towel. It's funny because it's a very serious situation and he's worried about a head towel. Don't laugh, that's actually a very serious plot point. It is. Ichigo once again is kind of, surprised / weirded out. But I gotta give Ichigo credit because I'm sure from Ichigo's perspective, this has all been just a massive acid trip ever since the Zero Squad showed up. They show up to begin with in the pillar and Ichigo's just like, what the fuck are these clowns doing? And then they get shot up into the Soul Palace in a massive pillar. They land. They have to play the test your strength game to knock him up to his next palace, which I'm assuming that's how they got there. They didn't show it, but I'm just, assuming. And now they're just sitting in a hot spring with critically wounded Byakuya, Renji, and Rukia. WTF has never been appropriately abbreviated ever in ever. But there we go. But of course, no matter how crazy the situation is, the Zero Squad does have a logical reason for it. They state that the actual reason they're sitting in this bath is because it's actually a type of healing method that he uses, and he's using it to heal Renji, Rukia, and Byakuya. So yeah, he shoves Byakuya under the water, he pulls Renji up like a beetroot, and he compares Rukia's bottom to peaches. Yeah, that's not a little creepy at all. Actually, you know what? I have to stop right here. Anyone that's a fan of Bleach fan fiction, it doesn't matter if you write it or if you just like reading it, and in particular, if you're a fan of Ichi-Rukia pairing, guys, we finally got a chapter, like in canon, this is into the plot, it's here, of Ichigo and Rukia taking a bath together. Christmas came early for you guys! I mean, granted, we also have a wounded Renji, and even more critically wounded Byakuya, and a skinny Zero Squad member in the hot spring with them, but it fits. Just there you go. You guys should be happy about that. So next couple of pages, he goes into detail explaining exactly how the hot springs work in the healing process. By engulfing them with this water, all the Reiatsu that damage them is being slowly driven out. You can't just say it's magic water, right? You have to have some kind of explanation. Okay, you know what? You go ahead and finish your explanation. I'm gonna go back and, I don't know, look at that title page. We take out the blood with the Bone White Hell, and we replenish the body with Hell Pond. Repeat that over and over again, and what we got was a body without a single drop of rotten Reiatsu. Clean as a whistle. That's my healing method. Oh, you done? Alright. Allow me to summarize this in very simple terms. Okay, so basically, there's two hot springs. The one hot spring they're soaking in right now kind of sucks up all the bad Reiatsu out of an individual, while the other one, the red one, replenishes it. So, basically, all you have to do is keep replacing the bodies back and forth in between them until eventually the Reiatsu's kind of washed off completely with new Reiatsu. Kind of like, I would compare it to blood transfusions, except with Reiatsu. I'm not really sure how that would affect Byakuya's physical wounds, because he was, like, shredded. But I'm guessing this is how he heals people, and I guess it's pretty effective if he taught Unohana about it. But Ichigo's a little bit curious about how exactly it works, to which the Pipe Zero Squad member mentions about how, way back in the Soul Society arc, about how there was a hot spring of similar qualities in Uehara's little playground underneath the Sokyoku Hill, and I actually remember that pretty well because there was a very funny scene in the anime revolving Yoruichi around that hot spring. But yeah, it's mentioned like, yeah, it's a hot spring that heals people, and to a lesser degree, that's kind of what Uehara came up with. But that's also stating, obviously expressly, that Uehara at some point was probably in the Soul Palace to examine the hot springs to begin with, so that's a little bit of interesting backstory right there. That might tie back into with Isshin, which everyone's always saying that the person that Kukaku mentioned in the last chapter, the uncle, was most likely Isshin, and, usually I'll come up with some rebuttal to that, but after thinking about it a little bit, guys, yeah, it was probably Isshin. I'm going to go with Isshin on that one. But, yeah, there are some interesting things I want to mention, though. Number one, why is this method not used in the Soul Society? I mean, if the Pipe Quincy... Oh, we actually find out his name. His name is Kirinji Tenjiro, the Hot Spring Demon. So, if Kirinji taught Unohana her medical abilities, why doesn't Unohana heal people with this same method? I mean, the hot spring does exist. I mean, we've seen it when, you know, Ichigo was healing with Uehara. So, I mean, I was assuming maybe, like, the Super Reiatsu had something to do with it. Like, the hot springs could not exist without the Super Reiatsu. But Kirinji never mentions it, and the hot springs in the Soul Society can function without it. So, why doesn't Unohana use this method herself? I'm just a little bit curious about that. Then again, we never really see her in-depth healing anybody, but it's never been, every time we do, we don't, you know, never with this method. So, just a little bit confused there. Just a little bit confused there because, you know, with this method, apparently it's very effective and it can save a lot of lives. I mean, Byakuya's on the verge of death, and he's pretty confident that he's going to make a full recovery. Don't know why they didn't bring Kenpachi up there, but that's another thing that I haven't really mentioned a lot is Kenpachi. And really, the only thing I have to think about Kenpachi is that, you know, when Byakuya was injured, Kubo really rammed it in. Kubo really expressly showed just how, you know, he freaking washed over by Zenbo Sakura, drilled into a wall, bleeding all over the place. You know, he really showed just how much, you know, Byakuya got beaten. And with Kenpachi, it was just like off-screen, Juha holding him up, tossed him aside, and we didn't get much more than that. So, I mean, if Kubo really wanted to show off that, you know, Kenpachi is really beaten to hell as much as Byakuya was, he would have shown his battle last a little bit longer, which he didn't. So I have no reason to think Kenpachi's going to die, or even that his life's in serious danger. Actually, so Ichigo stands pretty serious at this. You know, I think he's actually have some newfound respect for the guy because he is healing his friends. I mean, no matter how goofy he may be. We finally get the reason why that Tao was so important. Apparently, the reason why they're soaking in the hot springs and they're not being absorbed, like their Reiatsu's not being absorbed, is because they have the towels on their heads. One would hazard a guess of why they even need to be in the hot spring to begin with. I mean, Ichigo, I understand, because he's wounded, but why does Kirinji need to be in there? I don't know. Maybe he just likes being around naked chicks. Probably. That wouldn't really surprise me at all. Okay, so then last scene of the chapter, we cut over to another area in the Soul Palace where an unidentified individual is asking if the Soul King is awake, to which we finally get a look at to what he is. We see, like, Drape's mole back, and he's kind of in some kind of cocoon-like structure, and he opens his eyes, revealing some, you know, warped irises. Now, here's something interesting right here, and just follow me on this, but there's a little bit of similarities here between the king and a butterfly. Just follow me on this. Kirinji said, do you see that cocoon-like structure? Here we have the Soul King, who's encased in, obviously he's encased some kind of like structure similar to a cocoon. His eyes do not look human at all. They look more insect-like if nothing else. Along with that, they asked him, are you awake yet? Like he's been in some kind of long slumber, like some kind of evolution maybe. You know, so, I mean, he obviously is human-shaped, so that goes the idea maybe he's like some kind of object. People were thinking he's like the linchpin, so he's maybe some kind of object. Maybe he's like a treasure. Maybe he's not really a human being, but he clearly has a humanoid shape. It's just of how he acts, and we haven't seen him speak, so for all we know, he could be some kind of, I don't know, like maybe just some kind of figurehead or, you know, symbol. Maybe he's like some kind of just like thing that just stands up there and it just like deals out information and wisdom. Maybe he doesn't actually move anywhere, you know. He might not be an actual, you know, Shinigami like, you know, like the Zero Squad members, for example. But in any case, that's the final scene of the chapter. Like I said, there's not much I can really say about the Soul King himself because we really don't get to see much of him. We don't even get to see his full face, but that's what I'm kind of to bank on, maybe something insect-like. Next chapter, you know, we were kind of setting up the fact that maybe they all have to, like Ichigo and the others, maybe to completely heal Byakuya or Renji and Rukia, they have to head to, like, different sections of the Soul Palace, or if not even that reason, like, Kirinji said, first we're going here, so maybe that's, you know, setting up, they have to go to Kiryo's Palace, Bon's Palace, and the other, the Shutaras, and we haven't even seen that rocker dude yet. I don't think we saw him in this chapter. We haven't even get to hear his, like, he hasn't even talked yet, right? So I'm really curious about him just because he hasn't said anything yet, and he's very odd because he seems like the most interesting character because he looks like a 1970s rocker dude. So maybe we'll get some of him next chapter. That'd be pretty cool. Meanwhile, I really want to see something going back to see what Juha Bach's doing in the Vandenreich. Maybe, you know, cut back over to see what they're... I would love to see, like... Juha Bach has a war room, and they're like a map of the Soul Society, like the Nazis, and like planning out, like, okay, guys, we invaded this sector, maybe we're going to go back in, you know, that'd be pretty cool. Just to see what they're doing, like strategizing for Phase 2, because I'm sure Juha has some idea to take down the Zero Squad. I mean, he knew about their existence, he knew how strong they were, they had to retreat at the moment, so he's got something up his sleeve to take out the Zero Squad. Maybe that's the reason he wanted to make sure to get as much Bankais as possible, because, you know, I don't know if having a Bankai would essentially make you, easily able to defeat a Zero Squad member, but it would be much more easier to destroy them with a Bankai plus your Let's Steal than with just the Let's Steal. So maybe that was the point of their first invasion, to gather up as many powers, captain class as they could in order to take on the Zero Squad in maybe a massive, ambush type scenario. So that'd be pretty cool. So that's my Bleach Chapter number 519 review, guys. Thank you very much for watching it. Techie 101 signing out. See you guys.